What's up, everybody out in YouTube land? This is Lee once again coming to you from the beautiful Guitar Wishes facility in downtown Lincoln, North Carolina. And we are open. That's right, we're open. People are around here doing their thing. We're selling a lot of guitars, selling a lot of strings. People have been clamoring for some music gear, and they are coming in and buying. And we couldn't be happier that people are actually coming in the doors. It's good to see everybody. If you get a chance, come on in and say hello. Something else we're doing is we've started back our interviews, and we just got finished talking to a true legend, somebody I was thrilled to talk to. We just did a Skype interview with Michael Sweet from Stryper. That's right, Stryper's Michael Sweet. We sat down and talked about 30 minutes, had a great time, and check this out. I think you'll really enjoy it. First off, man, I appreciate you agreeing to talk to us today. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Now you're in your studio. I'm not in mine. I'm in my den, so hopefully that's cool.
Well, I'm sure yours is more comfortable than mine is. So
it's fairly comfortable, yeah.
Hey, it's funny. I was talking to the guys here beforehand, and I was on the road for a little bit. Back in the mid 2000s, I was in a Christian rock band for several years, and it was funny. I was talking about you guys and Stryper, and the one of all the people we played with, man, everybody from Toby Mac to Third Day to Big Daddy Weave, all these guys, Newsboys, Stryper was the catalyst. You know, and you know, how do you describe that?
Well, I mean, it's when you hear people say that, it's very humbling, and you know, I don't really sit around and think about that and think like we were the catalyst or we were this or we were that. I never really think about it. But when people remind you of the fact that you were on the front lines, you know, opening that door for the first time, you know, obviously you had bands like Petra and Rez and legendary bands like that. But, you know, Stryper was the first to come along and do it like we did it.
Yeah.
You know, with the sound and the look, and we kind of took it up a level. And yeah, it's crazy, man. It makes me feel really old because, I mean, that was a long time ago. You know, 1983, we formed officially. First album came out in 84. So that's going back a long ways. And, you know, it's just really cool to know that you've influenced a few others along the way. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah, man. And even people that are not even in the Christian music world. You know, there are people that, other bands that you really touched as well. And so I think it's a real thing. And it's like I was telling them, you guys are the constant. Stryper has always been the constant. Everybody I've ever talked to, Stryper is the constant. And
well, again, that's humbling, man. But yet at the same time, very cool to hear that. You know, if we weren't around, if we hadn't come on the scene, someone else would have. You know, and it would have been them for whatever reason. I don't know why the timing worked out like that, but we were the first band to come out and with that style and you know, with that message and the look and the craziness, you know, and all the stuff that we have. We were the first to do it. It's really cool. It's amazing.
yeah, well, let's get into some of the early stuff, man. If you look at the early 80s, Rock's Regime, and first band you were in with your brother, is that right?
That's right. Well, the first band I was in with my brother technically was called Firestorm.
Firestorm, all right.
And then we had another band called Aftermath. Those names didn't last long because they weren't great names. You know, they're like, okay. And then we joined up with a guy named John Gerardo in North Whittier. He had a band called Rocks Off. Excuse me. That was a little too risque for our liking. Even at the time, we weren't devout Christians, but we had grown up in the church, and you know, our hearts were telling us, "Nah, that's not right." So we changed the name to Rocks, ROXX, and then when John left the band, we became a trio, and we changed the name to Rock's Regime.
Gotcha.
And I always disliked Rock's Regime because whenever if someone would ask me what's the name of the band, I'd say Rock's Regime every single time. They'd say, "What's that?" You know what I mean? So I felt like that was a sign, like, okay, this name's too hard to understand or pronounce. We got to come up with something else. Eventually, we came up with Stryper.
Right. And when Stryper first started, when you first changed the name and to put the lineup together, was it all from the beginning, Christian devoted?
No, no. Going back to when Robert and I first started, and I joined his band, I was 12, almost 13, so I was really young. He was 15 at the time. We had basically become Christians through Jimmy Swagger. But as we got more and more involved in the music scene, we kind of fell into that trap. Everything that comes with it.
Sure.
Started drinking and smoking and trying to be cool, and there's this mentality that if you're going to go to a club back then in the old days, you got to have some Shermans in your hand and be smoking with the bourbon or whatever. And not that that's wrong if anyone does that. I'm just saying that we did it. I did it because I thought it was the thing to do. But I realized later on in life that I wanted to make a true commitment to Christ, and that's when we became Stryper. With Oz, Tim, Rob, and myself, we all rededicated our lives and made it for real at that point in time.
Yeah, and that's when things just really took off.
The thing about Stryper that, if you're a fan, you should understand is we've never been one to pull a punch.
Right.
We do what we feel led to do, and even if it is controversial or it's going to raise eyebrows or turn heads, we don't do it for that reason. But if we feel led to do it, we're going to do it, and we'll take the risk of, well, it's going to offend some people or it's going to turn some people off. We do it because we want to wake people up.
Right.
We want to, hopefully educate people about certain things, and that being one of them. Get off of the words, but get on to the meaning.
Sure.
It's the implication behind it. If you go around all day long, you hit your finger with a hammer and you say, God damn, obviously that's taking the Lord's name in vain.
Sure.
But, when you have an album called Goddamn Evil, it's not taking the Lord's name in vain when you read the meaning behind the lyric. But a lot of people are so set in their ways that they're blaspheming God. They're taking his name in vain. I can't buy that album. And it's like, wow, man, come on. Get to the bottom of the meaning before you judge it and turn it off,
Yeah. How are the new songs going over live? The last time I saw you guys play, you still play a lot of new stuff live, and I think it's cool that people are still writing and recording new music, and it's going over so well live. What do you see?
Well, I'm a big fan of that, of new material from most bands. Sometimes you go to a show, and I'm not going to name any names, but I'll go to a show and a band will go into a new song, and I'll go to the bathroom myself.
Yeah.
Because it's just a bad song.
Right.
It's not even close to their original material. It sounds like a filler B-side track. I experienced that in Boston. When we're up there playing Long Time and Peace of Mind, people are going nuts, and then we break into corporate America and people would go to the bathroom.
Right.
And I understood why. Because it's just a mediocre song compared to the great hits. But with Stryper, I think the difference with Stryper, and this will probably sound a little prideful or egotistical, but it's not meant to be that way. Our new material is just as good as the old material.
Yeah.
And, people can argue with me on that, and that's fine. That's their opinion. But my opinion is that of our new material is just as good, if not better sometimes. A song like Yahweh, that's right up there with any other song we've ever done. I don't care what you say or what you think. It is.
Yeah.
If that came out in 1987, it would have been the biggest song we ever had. Period.
Yeah.
But it came out in 2000 and whenever, 16, 15, 16, 17, at a time when, music just isn't, metal music just isn't as relevant as it once was.
Right, and it's evident at the live shows on how well these songs go over.
Man, I tell you, it's one of our best songs in the set. The Valley is another great one. Even songs like, Revelation and, a lot of the new material, we break into Goddamn Evil we were playing, some of the ballads. A lot of the new material, it's like, it's funny because we'll start playing a song and you can literally look out and see the people that don't know it. But by the end of the song, they're like looking around, talking to their friends, and you can read their lips, and they're saying, "What the heck?" I love that song. Oh my gosh, that was incredible.
Right.
And by the end of the song, they get it, and they're probably going off and downloading it after that, and it's probably becoming one of their favorite songs.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it quite a bit actually at the show I saw. Some of the new
Yeah.
songs are some of the most well received. And speaking of playing live, it amazes me. We talked about bands that we're not going to mention any names. But there's a lot of guys out there who are still trying to sing the songs, who can't do it anymore. But you still have the voice after so many years. How do you keep that?
I tell you, man, I think I'm one of those guys. First of all, this is my opinion. I don't have the voice I once had. I'm not gonna sit here and blow smoke and say that I do and lie about it. My voice has changed, obviously, but I think because my voice was so high and I experimented with a lot of different range in different octaves and whatnot. I think because of that, I'm able to still pull off, 85, 90% of the pass. I just choose my battles.
Right, right.
There are some songs I wouldn't attempt to sing live now. And there are some songs that I struggle with live, but I can still pull it off well enough where it goes over. We still don't tune down.
Right.
I think we might be from that era, one of the very few bands that doesn't tune down.
Oh yeah, there's some that tune down 2 and 3 steps.
There are bands out there that tune way down, and there are some bands that tune down a half step from where they once were, or a whole step. They were at E, now they're at D, or E flat, now they're at D. Stryper's still at E flat. Van Halen tuning. That's what we've been for every album.
Yeah.
And we're still there. I will admit it gets tough sometimes when you're out there doing 4 in a row on that fourth show. I'm up there struggling, like, oh man, this is tough. So maybe we will tune down to D, but we haven't yet.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I remember the very first band I was in when I was a teenager. We were in practice one day, and one of the guys brought in Honestly, and I was a keyboard player at the time, and started out on keyboards. I was like, yeah, I could play that. And your voice came in, and I said, who are we going to get to sing it? And of course, we never did it. That was way back before I knew about tuning down and all these things. But your voice has been incredible all these years. And do you have any regimens, things before a show that you do to really protect your voice?
I do, but there's a fine line with me. I hear about singers like Ronnie James Dio who never warmed up.
Mm-hmm.
He just went out and sang.
Yeah.
And then I do shows with singers, and you hear them warming up for 2 hours before the show. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that's a bit much.
Right.
And it's funny because then you hear them go out and you can hear the strain on their voice. They warmed up too much.
Right. They blow it out.
Kind of wore out their voice. And I've done that. I have literally warmed up too much and stressed out over it. So much so that when I go out to do the show, I'm struggling more. Right. So it's a fine line.
Sure.
Do those exercises, warm up your chords, stretch them out, prepare for the set, but don't go overboard with it,
Yeah, I was talking to Tommy DeCarlo, and I know you know Tommy.
Yep.
And he was telling me that the day before a show, or the day of a show, he doesn't speak at all. He does not talk to anybody. And, that's a way of doing it.
Well, that's a mentality that some singers have, but I don't necessarily approve of that. I don't do that because it's the same thing as when you wake up in the morning and then you don't talk all day. Your voice is still in sleep mode.
Yeah.
As you wake up, you know how you wake up with a real froggy voice?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Then you wake up and start talking, you have your coffee, and your voice opens up. Mm-hmm. It's important to talk some to open your voice up.
Sure. And I wanted to get into your book.
Yes.
And Honestly.
Yep.
So tell me how that came about. Have you always wanted to write one, or is that something new? Or you're obviously very creative.
What's that?
You're obviously very creative in all different forms. And so how did the book come about?
Well, I thought about writing a book when I left Stryper. Okay, so that's when the wheels started turning on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so busy with touring and solo albums back in the 90s and then moving back east. And my life changed so much, so dramatically. I put the book on a shelf and I didn't get back around to it until a few years prior to the book release.
Yeah.
And it's something I've always wanted to do. And it wasn't about exposing other people. It was never about that. It was only about sharing my story to maybe encourage other people. You know, what I had been through, the mistakes I had made, the choices I had made in life, maybe it would inspire and encourage, and some people wouldn't make the same mistakes I made. That's really what the book was supposed to be about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was hard because as I'm telling a lot of these stories, it incorporates other people.
Yeah.
If I'm telling a bad story that I was doing something I was doing bad in my book,
Yeah.
and Oz and Rob were there, it may come across like I'm throwing them under the bus, but they're part of the story, you know?
Right. Sure.
So that was tricky. That was really tricky, trying not to throw people under the bus.
Well, has that come back to bite you at all?
Well, it did. I mean, some of the guys were upset when the book came out about certain things, and um, you know, some people were upset when they read the book, and uh, you know, again, it wasn't done in a vindictive way at all. And I think if you read the book, most people see that.
Absolutely. It's a great book, and people really need to check that out. And it's an honest story, you know.
Yeah, and you go read some other books, you know, from people about their bandmates, and oh my gosh,
that's all it is. They just want to slam their bandmates.
Oh so, my word, dude! It's like I'm reading it, going, "Wow, this is unbelievable. This is terrible," and they're getting praise, and I'm thinking, "Wow." You know, so I didn't do that at all. I didn't go down that road.
I felt that's what I found refreshing about it, is because it was your story and you weren't throwing anybody under the bus. The stories are the stories.
I literally went out of my way to not do that. And there were even a few things in there when the book was finally finished that I had said in interviews and stuff, and that got recorded, that made it into the book, that I felt might have been too negative or didn't shine a good light on a person, and we pulled it. Yeah. I mean, I went out of my way not to do that.
Right. You know, just a little light question I wanted to ask you, something I've always wondered. Does your church tap you to come in and do things?
Do they ask me to come in and do things?
Come in and play?
Yeah, on occasion. My church, Cape Cod Church, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, we're doing like a special on mainstream music. Can you come in and sing a Boston song? We're going to do a Boston song." And I did.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And they asked me to come and do a Bon Jovi song, and they've asked me to perform before, but it just doesn't always work out.
Right.
Because, you know, if I'm traveling or whatnot and I can't do it, obviously I can't do it, but I love doing that. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, it really is. Let's talk about your guitar.
Yes.
You're playing a Washburn, is that right?
I was with Washburn for just over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I was spoiled there because there was a guy by the name of Gil Sousey, and he was unlike any other person in the business. Mm-hmm. He is the nicest guy and so accommodating, and it feels like the old days.
Right.
Like when I was with Jackson back in the 80s, there was this special relationship, and it's incredible. Nowadays, you can't find that.
Right.
It's all corporate. It's all, you know, yeah, when we have our next meeting in 3 months, we'll think about it. You know, it's like that.
Sure.
It's just bizarre. It's weird. I don't like it. So I went to Washburn because it felt like the old days, and I worked with Gil, and they made me some incredible guitars. They released a few models. I have a couple electric models, import and USA models, and then I also have an acoustic guitar that just came out. But I am no longer with Washburn legally. My agreement's up. I wound up going to a different company, and I'm going to be working with a company called Sully Guitars,
Okay.
And John Sullivan is making some killer guitars, like the old Rhodes style, the
Right.
same shape as my old Rhodes, and he's got a King V, and just has some incredible designs. And man, I tell you, I'm really excited to work with him and to move forward with Sully guitars.
How long before you see your first signature model coming out from those guys?
Well, he's going to release a U.S. signature and an import. He's building me a guitar right now for the video shoot and photo shoot in June.
Okay.
And it's a King V style.
Right.
And wait till you see it.
Oh, I can't wait, man.
It's so awesome, amazing.
The black and the yellow, is that
Yep.
is that going to forever be a theme?
Well, I could say fortunately yes or unfortunately yes.
I loved it. You know, when you see that, people automatically know Stryper, and you know,
Here's the deal with that. Yellow and black. It's our signature. It's branded the band. It's such an important, integral part of who the band is, obviously. But at the same time, it's limiting to some degree because all we can wear is yellow and black.
Yeah.
And all our guitars have to be yellow and black. Everything has to be yellow and black. You know, if we were to walk out with the red and black guitar, people would freak out and say, "What?" You know. So it makes it harder to have special guitars made and find clothes that are yellow and black and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, yellow isn't my favorite color. I don't have one yellow shirt in my wardrobe.
That's cool, man.
I mean, I've got all my stage clothes downstairs, all yellow and black. But you come up to my closet upstairs, there's not one yellow item in the closet.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you. I'm gonna wrap up here in just a minute, but I wanted to ask you about legacy. And when you finally hang it up,
Yep.
what do you want your legacy to be in the music business and life? When people think of Michael Sweet, what do you want them to think?
Well, I want them to think, obviously, and say and remember that, I stuck to my guns. I never wandered from values and who I am and what I stand for. I've always stood and stayed strong and kept my feet planted in one position on that. And I've never changed. And I never will change, So I've tried to be a man of integrity. And I hope that maybe they might remember me for, being a decent player as much as I am, I guess, a decent singer. I give my all to it. I love to sing, I love to play, but I feel like sometimes my guitar playing gets overshadowed or forgotten. And it used to really bother me. It doesn't bother me so much anymore, but I still read things like, someone puts a song up and they say, "Man, I love this solo. It's the best solo Oz has ever done," and it was actually me playing the solo. Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? No.
Right.
But yet it kind of does.
Sure.
I just wish I wish someday the switch would go on where people would say he's a guitar player as much as he is a singer. I don't know, man.
Well, how is Oz, by the way?
Oz is good. He's doing good. He's he's been following a strict diet and in a good place mentally and doing well.
One of the last things I wanted to say was I wanted to thank you. You've always been unapologetically Michael Sweet and Stryper, and you've not changed with the times. You've kept to your guns, and you've done what you thought was right. And I think that's got a lot to do with your success, and that's why people are still showing up and selling out your shows and singing the new songs as well as the old songs, because you are unapologetically Stryper. You're not going to change for anybody.
No, man. And we've taken punches and blows over the years by a lot of people. We still take them. People who just, I mean, I've read some pretty vile stuff about us, and it's like, I always say this lately, and I mean it. That's the fuel that feeds our fire. Mm-hmm. It's like when we read something like that, it's like, yeah. It doesn't. We don't sit there and go, "Oh man," Yeah. You're not going to defeat us. Right. Nobody's going to defeat us. No one.
That's awesome.
And we're going to keep getting stronger and better, and we're going to be the last man standing.
Yeah.
The last band standing.
You go.
You know, when all the dust clears and there's, you know, a lot of bands are gone, and heaven forbid if we can keep our health and still keep breathing here on earth, we're going to keep standing. We're going to keep making music. We're going to keep playing. And a lot of people are going to be saying, I never would have known.
Yep.
Stryper? Really? Are you kidding me? Yep, I'm not kidding you.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough. And you guys have got some shows still planned for the end of the year. Do you foresee live shows coming back in the near future?
Well, I mean, I think the reality is everyone wants to be positive and think that there is going to be.
Sure.
But there's not going to be. I mean, not at any level close to what it was before. It's going to be completely different. Obviously, if we do get back to performing this year, it's going to be, to smaller crowds due to having to stay separated. Maybe some shows with people in their cars, as we're starting to see. Obviously, some live shows, live streaming shows. It's just going to be a different world for a while.
Sure.
And I think, sadly, the music world is going to be the slowest to come back.
Yeah.
I really believe so, because it was already pretty wounded over the past 10, 15 years from all the digital, streaming stuff and sales being down, and even live concert attendance was down. And now it's going to take some time to come back. But I do think we're going to come back. I do think we're going to be better and stronger than ever. It's just going to take some time.
I just hope that musicians are using this time to be creative. I mean, you're
Yes.
stuck inside. You know, what else you're going to do? I've talked to a couple who their mentality, they're actually in a depressed state where they don't want to write anything. And I can understand that. But I would love for people to use this, because a lot of great music can come out of this time.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I mean, it's interesting because the new Stryper album, for example, I can't give the title yet. I wish I could, but we started recording that in pre-production for that in January, and we finished recording it in February. The basic tracks, and then we went and did a tour of Mexico. Came back, I started singing late February, early March. We just finished it, so we were working on that album throughout this whole thing. Coronavirus. My brother was coming every day while we're tracking basic tracks, saying, guys, the virus is spreading, giving us all the latest updates.
Right.
So we were making this album under those circumstances, and I think it kind of made for a unique album and a better album. It really kind of inspired us in an odd way.
I understand. Absolutely. Well, Michael, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been a true pleasure talking to you. Very special thanks to Michael Sweet for giving us permission to intrude on him in his house there. And we had a great time talking to him. So thanks again to Michael. And, of course, to Brian Mays, his publicist, for helping us get that taken care of. Thanks, Michael. Take care out there. And we got some more coming up, some really cool interviews I'm doing this week and next. We got some driving and crying coming up. That's right. A couple of really cool bass players, Perry Richardson from Firehouse, and actually he plays in Stryper now as well. Some really cool guests coming up, but keep checking out our site. Check out guitarwishes.com. Check out our Facebook site, and of course, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Smash that notification bell so you're informed of all this cool stuff when it comes up. We'll talk to you soon.
Cruising for a bruising.